Welcome to Season 4 of the Knack 4 Business Podcast.
Question for the audience. What happens to your business if you face a security emergency and you're not prepared? That's exactly what Ken will talk about. How most businesses don't realize how vulnerable they really are until it's too late. He helps business owners avoid operational shutdowns, financial loss, and safety risks by putting smart, reliable security systems and locksmith support in place before disaster hits. Our guest today is Ken Suitor from TrueMax Security. He's the owner of TrueMax Security and a hands on entrepreneur with a unique blend of creative, technical, and business experience. He grew up in Sherbrooke, Quebec, inspired by his grandfather and grounded by hard work on a market garden and a dairy farm. Ken first pursued 2D and 3D animation and worked in Montreal until 2008 when the crash happened, and that reshaped his path. He then studied business management at McGill, moved to Kingston to become a store manager with The Source while launching his first company, and later relocated to Ottawa to work in the trades that he'd been training for. Today, Ken brings together his creative problem solving and operational leadership and real world experience to build smart, reliable security solutions that protect businesses and the people behind them. Ken, it's an absolute pleasure having you here today. Welcome. Do you have a favorite quote or saying, sir?
Well, there is one that we use, which is pick us before they pick you, as in picking locks.
So, yeah, going from a market garden and dairy farm, right, being in the agricultural industry, and then swinging all the way over to doing artwork to the source, the retailer, and then all the way over to working locksmith. What kind of drove you along that path? What made the career choice happen for you?
Well, I was always interested in video games and art, so I did go that avenue with the 2D and 3D animation when I chose my path through school. Unfortunately, that didn't pan out, but that's what drove me to find something a little more stable in business management, which I had a background with my grandfather teaching me how to operate a business, deal with customers, and issues that arise through ordering and that type of environment. After which I decided after the crash that really something more stable like business management or becoming a manager would be a better role for myself. And then after I took some education on the topic, I was quite interested in leading people and growing employees. And then it just kind of went from there. I was lucky enough to kind of, I guess, decide that I wanted to take a trade on. I was always interested in working with my hands, probably from the agriculture background and being on the farm and the market garden with my father and grandfather. That's what kind of led me to wanting to grab one of the trades, and plumbing or electric was always full. So I was interested in locksmithing, I guess, really since the beginning, the intricate work that has to go into building them and keeping them maintained. And I mean, everyone really, you just put your hand in your pocket and everyone has a set of keys. So I always thought I'd be busy.
Ken, I'm not going to speak my piece until you speak yours. Where are you on e-lockable doors?
So with electric locks or key fobs,
Yes.
so the issue that we have with them as locksmiths is from a security standpoint, their lock part itself is easy to break into or pick. You can easily buy a pick set from any well-known source. With a little bit of training or a little bit of YouTube videos, you can figure out how to open one. Whereas if you had a high security lock in that electronic lock, then they're a huge deterrent. A high security lock just has more pins, more levels to it. It's a better product all around. But you have an electronic lock with a keypad, which is great. I mean, normally they're connected with your phone, so you have encryption through your phone, or they need to get through your Wi-Fi password to get at you. So there's extra levels, but the physical component of that lock, you can drill, you can pick. It's not as secure as you'd think.
There was one software firmware failure of an e-lock company, and you actually had to bring the door back to get it replaced. I don't know if that's true or apocryphal, but I always thought that was hilarious. They had to take the door off and send it to get a new door. I thought, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, there's issues to them for sure.
So when you migrated into this business and to allow for scaling, we need staff. And so how did you map that process out? Do you like you go, listen, I'm going to have X number of clients and it's going to have a certain workload attached to it. And then how do you find the right staff? They have to be trustworthy. They have to get past the police background check, I'd imagine, but also have the skill set. It's one thing that you're honest and good as an angel, but if you got no sense of how mechanical engineering works, you're pooched.
That's an interesting question. Really, I was lucky enough that before I purchased this business in 2019, I was an employee, and my mentor at the time gave me a lot of guidance. He'd been in the trade for about 45 years. Uh, what he had said is really, and I guess it's the same with any industry, it comes down to mathematics. Uh, Normally, we figure that a technician can produce about $300,000 a year. So that's kind of the guideline I've kept. Kind of if our business starts to really increase, then I know I need the technician. And I've had about 6 years now, so I have a really good understanding of what our high and low seasons are, which has been pretty well true for the last 3 years, even during the, the COVID-19 era. So we've stayed true to those numbers, even if they've gone up a little bit. It's always been kind of the same trajectory and same graph. As to getting employees, my trade, which I guess is unfortunate, but a lot of trades are like this. Most locksmiths are between the age of 55 to 70. So hiring is next to impossible. And there isn't a whole lot of trade schools for the locksmith industry. It's not that it's not that I wouldn't say it's a dying trade. It's just like being one of the first trades, right? Other than blacksmith, it's just kind of being like a forgotten trade, which is kind of good for us being a younger shop. There's lots of work, but all of my employees I have to train from green. So as as long as someone can push a power tool and understands what the numbers on the drill means, then we have to train you up from ground up.
And the right drill, and the right drill bit. Sorry, my shop class is all coming back to me in flashbacks now. No, not that device.
Yeah,
Wait,
so
wait.
that's our challenge really is it's about a 6-month training period. We have a whole catalog and videos and things that we have to have our employees go through and then do it in front of us and testing, and it's a process.
And I obviously watch far too many movies, but the one thing that interests me is the dark side. And I know there's both technical skills and morals, but which happens more? Great locksmiths who decide they need 5 Rolex watches or great criminals who decide to go straight?
Well, unfortunately, we can't hire the criminals, even though, I mean, imagine a few of them are quite good at picking locks. But most of the things in the industry, like most of the people, I should say, not things, but most of the people in the industry are quite law-abiding citizens. Like they know they have these skills. It's more of a joke that, especially when you get a bunch of locksmiths in the same room, it's all, if you go to a restaurant, we'll point out everything wrong with the doors. Or if we're in a bank, like I've done work in lots of the major banks here in Ottawa, the RBCs, CIBCs, TDs, and you just walk in and you're like, well, there's a cash cabinet that sure I could break into, but there's cameras everywhere and I like my job. It's not it- it's not like that you have a lot of people that learn these skills and do it. The other thing too, and is I guess this is just with any trade, if you don't use the skills, you lose it. So if you're not picking locks all day long, you can easily go from being able to pick any lock in 2 minutes to less, to it taking you 5 to 10 minutes. And in Ottawa, the statistic is about 15 minutes. So if you can keep someone from breaking into your home within 15 minutes, someone's going to notice.
What are the mistakes that you could help them avoid easily? What jumps out for you as security mistakes in business?
A lot of the security mistakes that we see, we've had a slew of break ins of just companies relying on their electronic security. So a lot of companies will say, oh, well, it's fine. I have an alarm, or yeah, I have motion detectors on the inside. But that's great, except, let's say you're a cannabis shop because they get hit the most. So, okay, yeah, it's great. You've got an alarm system. You even have a two-way door, right? Like they've got to go through like a checkpoint so you can approve them to get at your merchandise. That's great too, except they've got 15 minutes. So they've got a sledgehammer, they smash your front door, or they pry bar your front door. Then you've got a second door that they pry bar. Let's say that takes 5 minutes. Now they can, alarms going and everything, run into your shop for another 10 minutes and just grab whatever they can and then run out. So, like, we try to promote, okay, well, let's have a full length astracal, which is a full length guard plate on the edge of your door so they can't get a crowbar into the edge of the door. Let's give you high security locks so they can't just drill out your lock. Like, there's lots of things you can do to physically deter people. And the biggest thing we promote too is just the sight of your door. If your door looks rather secure, then they're not going to try. It's not worth their time to fight with your door for however long it's going to take when, the next door, the jewelry shop is just all glass. We'll just hit them.
You find that you do an audit based on who the threat is. If it's like the smash and grab, typically is not, they might have a plan, but it's not sophisticated. It's not like they're going to Antwerp and breaking into a diamond jewelry exchange where there's a little more planning involved, right? One of the high end security heists. Do you ever do an audit where you're mapping out the threat versus the location, and then versus maybe is the constabulary located nearby? Because I know one place out here in the Canada area, talking to one of the staff, he happened to walk into the premises to show up for work. Next thing you know, he's looking at a copper, and he goes, "I was just here like 3 minutes." He didn't even get 15 minutes of airtime in the space before he was looking at a constable going, "You come here." Do you ever do an audit and help build that out for them, or is that part of your process?
It really depends on the customer. The only customers we've done that for are mostly government agents, most and software companies that have requested extra security in and out of their building. But most businesses, mom and pop shops, convenience stores, that type of thing, are not interested in pursuing until it happens, right? It's just that way. Like a funny story with a homeowner that we had, just to include it in here, would be we had a homeowner and they bought this brand new tractor, lawn tractor. And they did the lawn and it was great. It's a beautiful machine. Um, and we'd rekeyed the homeowner's locks. And we pointed out that his garage was basically a cardboard box. He said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's behind the house. No one's gonna care." So about a month goes by and he goes on vacation and he comes back in July, end of July, and about 2 weeks later, and there's no lawn tractor. And he said, "Well, I don't understand." Like, he called us up. He's like, I don't understand. How did they get in there? And they just destroyed his rolling garage door. They'd pried it enough so they could crawl under it, opened it from the inside, and then left with his tractor. And of course, you leave your keys in the lawn tractor. So he's like, "I don't understand. Like, how did they know that I had this beautiful machine?" And I'm like, "Friend, you're mowing your lawn every single week. They can see you." And then, they just check back and they check back and drive around and, oh, all of a sudden you're gone for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Oh, he's gone. 4th day. All right, cool. Let's go get that truck.
There's all kinds of bogus press releases. Everyone has a new flavor, whether it's real or not. How do you stay current with tech when there's so much noise? I assume there is. In my industry, there is. How do you stay current?
We don't really, as a locksmith, we kind of decide what works. We know what works. And in like the mechanical and physical security is kind of at a standpoint because you can't really advance any more than where we are right now. In the last probably 5 years, definitely since I've owned my shop, all these companies have been coming out with cloud-based stuff and get it on your phone and face recognition and biometrics and all this crazy stuff. And yeah, it's easier to use, but it's also easier to break into. So, like, there are some companies that just stick to the status quo. They build steel cased products, hardened steel that's harder for someone to drill into. And sure, they look more commercial grade, but they're a heck of a lot tougher than the new stuff that's made with like soft white metals and aluminum. And that's kind of the trade off in our industry is if it looks real nice, then it's really, even if it's expensive, it's made cheap. And if it's more of a beastie kind of square, some customers would say ugly looking product, well, that's gonna do the job. But
Definitely conveys a
to your
message.
point, Wayne, no, there's our industry really can't advance because companies have decided to give up on machining. And just like the car industry, they've given up on trying to make an engine, better, and they've decided that going electronic or trying to make it cheaper is the way to go.
I've just always wondered the key that says do not duplicate in your kit, whether it's an employer's key or whatever. What is a locksmith's take on a do not duplicate key?
We're able to cut it.
Of course, but so tell me more about the theory behind it.
So, really, the reason we stamp our keys do not duplicate is so customers think that they're not duplicate and like they can't go to somewhere to get them duplicated and they have to come back to the original lock shop. The real theory for me behind it is to prevent them from going to Canadian Tire, Home Depot, anywhere that's not a reputable lock shop. Because like I wouldn't necessarily care if you go to a reputable lock shop to get your keys cut because our industry is so close knit that we help each other out pretty well. Like I only have a certain amount of keys I can cut, and another shop only has a certain amount of like locks that they service. So we'll help each other out that way. But there's no way we want to help out any of the box stores.
I think part of the do not duplicate from my corporate side is, again, depends on the type of key. A higher security key is really hard to duplicate. You have to have the right cutting equipment or it has to be sent off. But also to stop it from getting duplicated so you don't, if you have a crew of 1,000 people or greater, right, you can stop the surprises.
So that's very true. With true high security keys, like for us, like on my shirt, we do the Abloy brand. There's also Medico and Multilock. All of those brands, the the keys are specifically milled for the lock shop. So only that lock shop can cut that exact key blade. So
That's
those
good to
high
know.
security keys are the ones that are truly not duplicated because you just can't. Like the only shop in the city has that key is that shop you got it from. But any of the ones, like you said, Wayne, that are just stamped with "do not," then yeah, they're normally just a regular key that has that stamped on it.
Do you find that in the automotive industry, like we just mentioned earlier, if it looks bulky, ugly, and square, sorry, it probably wards you off from trying to if you're trying to break in, wards you off. Do you find in the automotive industry has lost since it gone more electronic? It's with a fob, finger on button device and or proximity unlocking devices. In the industry, it's also RFID. Do you find that they've gotten away from it, or are there ways to secure cars? And I guess the emphasis here is on, hey, my car is gone. Where'd it go? It's halfway around the globe. Do you find that there's things that they should be addressing, or is there things that you can do to help make the car harder to take away?
So, no, a car is not secure. There's lots of things that people can do to get at your fob. The worst thing being somebody, and you see it all the time at hospitals or grocery stores or really anywhere where there's a huge parking lot of cars and people are pushing the panic button or the chirp to try to find where their car is. Well, the reason that's the worst thing is you're just broadcasting your signal anywhere, and then someone can just like a credit card, grab that from the air and save it onto a little black box that they can then program onto another key fob that's similar for your vehicle. There's a whole bunch of things and the reason we had a whole lot of thefts of vehicles was really just signal boosters. So people would put their keys at their front door, and that a thief would just have a signal booster that would push that keys boosting to the car door. Well, but the terrible thing, and this is again for convenience, is all cars after 2018 always want to be unlocked. So
They
any
want
of
to be
the
unlocked.
yeah, they all cars after 2018 want to be unlocked. What this means is they have a receiver inside the door that's usually around the handle of the door, and it's always looking for the key fob, because any of these key fobs where people don't even touch them, like with the push start, you just walk up to the door and it unlocks your car. While having those, your car door always wants to be unlocked and your ignition always wants to be turned on, because when you push that button, it turns on, but it needs that signal. So your car is just designed this way for ease and convenience to always want to be unlocked and always want to be turned on. So when somebody has a booster, your car is already saying, yep, yep, unlock. That's what I want. And when they boost the signal, your key fob is always saying, I want to unlock the car. And your car is always saying, I want to be unlocked. So once they're close enough together, that's what happens.
See, I'm so ahead. I'm so high security. I drive a car not worthy of stealing. That's my breakthrough.
That's the best way to do it. That's really
And
what it is. Any car before 2018.
well, it's actually newer than that. But one thing I do want to know, because of where we are at this moment, hopefully by the time this airs, it won't even be relevant. But I am guessing that locks are made in various places of the world, and it may not always be in Ottawa or Kingston. Can you tell me about tariff issues for locks and locksmiths in a global economy?
So we had a huge conference about this right when the tariffs started back in April, I think it was. And we knew that our industry would be hit, and we were hit quite hard on the steel and aluminum. So that was pretty detrimental to a lot of locks that we would normally install. So we used to have like a entry level in the industry. We have grade 3, which is the lowest, grade 2 and grade 1. A lot of grade 1 products are coming out of, well, for Slage, it's coming out of America, out of their American plants. There's Von Duprin, which is created in Germany mostly, and a few other different companies have a grade 1, but it's normally made at their head office so that they can keep tabs on um, quality of the product. So, funnily enough, we used to sell a lot of grade 2 products that would come out of the States. But as soon as we were hit with the tariffs, all of their prices were the same as the grade 1 products, which is a better product coming out of Germany or Switzerland or Finland. So, really, what we just started doing was okay, well, we can give you a better product for the same price as what's coming out of the States. So, let's just not promote the state stuff because all of the other like German products or Finnish product or any of that is honestly a better quality and it's going to last you 20 years. So it's a better product all around for the same price as what we're getting hit with the tariffs. And the nice thing was that all of our suppliers had the same mindset. So it was nice that in our whole industry it was like, okay, well, if the Americans don't want to play, then we're just not going to sell their products. Sure, they're available, but we're just going to pitch the stuff that is honestly better and now basically a comparable price. We'll just start pushing those. And then anything that we were using that was, not to grade 1, it was more of a mid-tier grade 2, we started getting from like Taiwan or China. And I mean, the quality sure wasn't the same as what we'd be getting from Germany or whatever, but the price was. So we weren't really hurt. It's just, it was a huge change to how we did business and the products we used.
We have two things that are fighting ease, well, three ease, visibility, and security. They all fight. I love walking by a store with 40 feet of glass and this amazing lock on the door. Have you guys ever heard of a rock? But
Yeah,
one question I do have is, do you have to wear a different hat when you're thinking commercial and residential?
definitely. We even have to wear a different hat for the type of customers we're dealing with. Typically, our avatar or our bread and butter residential customer would be someone who is middle class. The reason for that is they seem to know what they have and they're willing to protect it. So they're willing to invest in a high security lock because they know that that will protect their kids. If they lock it up at night, nobody will be looking around their house. And if they decide to get a really nice lawn tractor or they decide to invest in like a big barbecue because they like to barbecue, then they know that those locks will protect their backyard. We're finding a lot of well-to-do customers for residential side don't seem to care about security of their house.
Really?
The more money that someone seems to make personally, they're not as worried about, I guess, replacing things that they're losing. It just seems to work out that way.
Why?
It seems to be in an age gap. Anyone till about 55, we find, until they start to be a retiree, they don't care about security. It's, yeah, it's fine if someone breaks into my house and steals a TV, I'll just replace it. Or somebody goes and steals my car, okay, well, insurance will take care of it. They push it, keep putting it to the back burner. But it seems like when somebody has something to protect, whether it be a grandchild, a child, even a dog, they think about things differently. And it's the same for a business too. Like I said or alluded to earlier, most businesses wait until they're attacked to think about security. They think of that mindset that, well, we have cameras, we have an alarm system, it's connected to the police. It's all fine and good, but you still should have that barrier. It's the first deterrent.
We've talked about like keyways and locks and cars and so forth, or commercial property, the entranceway, and that's perimeter security. There's also security within the structure. Are you also involved with safes and vaults?
Yes.
And so, who's t- when's it a good idea to have in a residential a vault? Is it asset protection from theft or is it from destruction like flooding and fire?
Usually we would say both. It's not so much theft, because most safes, especially if you get a good one, are about 200 to 300 pounds. So, like, even a team of two, that's pretty hard to lug through a house. But it is definitely, and people don't like to think about it, but we're, especially in Ottawa, with the Rideau River, we're in a prime location to be flooded. Putting, your birth certificates, or if you have an office in the basement, just all of your important files in that box is your passports. That's really what you're trying to protect. Because your grandma's jewelry or whatever, you can definitely put that in there for sure, but it's more your paperwork. We find today that people are more inclined to keep in a safe. Mm. Funnily enough, there's not really a whole lot of safety deposit boxes being bought in banks. I don't know if it's just like my generation is not inheriting all of the old jewelry or whatever that past generations were, but most of the time when we have to open up a safe for someone, it's filled to the gills with paperwork.
We live in a different time than I say our parents and our grandparents. I think a lot about who has the right to get in between landlords and tenants or mergers and acquisitions. How do you decide the person asking you to change the locks is actually the rightful owner that should be getting in?
The only way we really can do that is at the discretion of the person who's requested us to do the work. So if it's a lockout situation and we go to someone's home, we always ask for ID, whether it be a driver's license or some sort of government ID. And then we ask for, we double check the address. I mean, it has happened more than once where we'll get called from a wife or a husband that is upset that we opened the place for their divorced wife or husband, and we're like, "Well, the ID's matched. The address says that they're supposed to be there. So, there's really nothing we can do if the address matches." Opening cars, there's only really been one instance where somebody couldn't prove that it was their car. We basically just threw the keys back in the car and locked the car and shut the door. So there
Smart.
are times when that happens. I mean, for businesses, we normally ask to reach out to their landlord, and it does take a little bit longer, but we have to make sure that we're not just opening spaces for people that aren't actually tenants or business owners.
Do you find insurance companies play a role in decisions in how, from a commercial point of view, that will insure you? So, the obvious one would be you're a jeweler. You carry small, compact, thievable things that can be sold easily. Do you find insurance companies come in and say, listen, we have a certain requisite of systems that have to be installed, whether it's shatterproof glass, a certain type of keyway? Do you ever find that happening?
Not not normally with the keys. They usually leave the customer up to whatever type of key, but there is a prerequisite, especially for jewelry stores, like you said, where they have to have a certain like a size of safe for the merchandise. So it's usually a value. So if they say they have so many $1 million worth of product, then they need to have a safe to accommodate the size of the product that they have on hand. Normally, insurance will give people a discount if they do have some sort of protection in place, whether it be electronic or physical. But more likely than not, we're finding that insurance doesn't necessarily play a whole play for our industry. I mean, it probably should, but it doesn't really. They don't give more of a discount for having a better lock or a particular keyway.
So you spoke rather eloquently about avoiding trends and avoiding buzz, but what's coming in business security in the next 2 to 5 years, if anything?
Cloud-based.
And you think that's the wrong move?
I do. There's a really big push which has been happening more and more each year. It started really taking hold when all of the lockdowns happened, and it's kind of a scary transition. But what you alluded to in the beginning there, Wayne, where locks becoming more electronic, what's coming down the pipe is either retinal scans on locks or someone being able to, instead of having like a badge or any of that, they just have their cell phone. They just have a proximity to the lock and it'll unlock. Really, it comes down to ease, and a lot of companies are purchasing other companies, and that's what's happening. So in our industry, a lot of electronic companies that provide cameras, automatic door openers, card access systems, through the lockdowns, they got incredibly profitable because everybody wanted that now on their buildings to have a key fob. Not a whole bunch of employees have to touch a key, yada, yada, yada. It's just safer, right? That's what they thought. So these really profitable electronic companies bought hardware companies because they thought that would be a great mix, would be having the security and the electronic in one device. Um, the problem we're getting is because the electronic company owns the physical law, they're trying to jam more and more components into it, even to the fact where there's no longer a keyway, which just means there's no key. It's all just card access. And the problem with that is when you go to call a locksmith, we'll show up at your door and we'll kind of look at you and say, well, the only way to get in is to destroy the door because all you have on your door is a little card reader that's attached to a really strong lock. And we're like, well, the only way to get at that really strong lock would have been if there was a lock that ran it, but you don't have a lock on your door. So we now have to drill through your door to get at the component a standard lock would have functioned.
Manual
And
override
you
always comes in handy.
you are in the greater Ottawa area. What is the level of consulting this? Hey, I'll give you a quote. And what then breaks into a no, I actually want an audit. What are the costs involved of getting you in front of my door?
We do offer um, a free consultation. There has been talk in the past of offering a charge for that or something, or a service fee, but I've just kind of never felt I wanted to do that. I mean, I put my price out there fairly, and if the customer doesn't necessarily want to work with us, well, then that's fine. But we have a very high conversion rate with our estimates. Normally, when we go to a place, we do a survey, we let them know what they need, and then we bill it accordingly. And if they decide to go somewhere else, which has happened in the past, it normally comes back to us. Whether it's something that the other company has missed on their estimate or the quality that they've been putting is not what we would be putting. I mean, it's even come to the point where I'll show up to a job with hardware. That way they can hold the hardware in their hand. They can actually see what the weight is of the metal that we're putting on the door. Just being honest with the customer is what I find really gets us the sale. Knowing our stuff and being honest.
So, last question. What's the strangest thing someone has asked you to either lock or unlock
Pair of handcuffs.
in active service?
Yes. Early on in my career, I decided to take on 24/7 service, which we now have implemented and do all the time. But one of my early calls or first calls was a gentleman who'd been strapped to a bed, and his Tinder date had stolen his pants and his wallet. And funnily enough, he just somehow got his phone and dialed us using his nose from Google. So we show up and I said, "Well, all right, we'll just put the towel over here, and then we'll we'll get you out of there, sir." That was the strangest one I've ever had.
Were they pink and furry, or are they just straight hand standard cuffs?
I think they were just standard. I mean, I don't really remember if they were colored. I was more worried about the naked guy in handcuffs at the time, I guess. But that was the funniest call I'd ever got.
Yeah, and what's the best way to get a hold of you?
So if you're looking for immediate service, it would be our phone number, 613-591-0909. If you're looking for an estimate, my email, ken@trumaxsecurity, TRUMAX, security.ca is the best way to get one of those.
Ken, I want to say thank you so much for being a guest here today and sharing that last anecdote. You're changing my view on handcuffs. I kind of figured it was going down that path, but hey, who knows? To my co-host Wayne Pratt, who's not in cuffs and not in his bedroom, thank you, and you, the Knack for Business listeners. So, if you are in the Ottawa Valley, in the Ottawa area, and you need to look at your security or need some pricing on keeping your place safe, whether it's the kids or the jewels, the family jewels, even perhaps, based on what we just talked about, reach out to Ken.
To reach the podcast hosts, email them at info@creativeinsight.com or by the website creativeinsight.com, spelled KREATIVISIGHT.com. To reach Wayne at his email, wayne@motive8u.ca, that is MOTIVE, the numeral 8 and the letter u.ca, or his website, motive8u.ca. If you would like to be a guest on this podcast and share your knowledge, let us know. We would also appreciate your feedback on the content or format. Check the show notes for more details. For these podcasts, we like to acknowledge the support and thanks to the following people. Carl Richards from Podcast Solutions Made Simple, a renowned podcast expert. Fred Crouch, who is the Property Wizard podcaster, where Bernie is a co-host. Jovan Strika from At Hive, a co-working space that is more than just a space. Then Melanie Weber, Bernie's invaluable business partner, and Wayne Pratt from Motive8U Inc., who serves as both a coach and co-host of these podcasts. Disclaimer. Please note that the Knack for Business podcast episodes are meant solely for educational and general informational purposes. The information and opinions contained within are not intended to be professional advice on any subject matter. The thoughts, views, and opinions expressed by the participants are their own personal beliefs and do not represent the views of the podcast hosts or any affiliated organizations. It is important to note that this podcast is not a replacement for consulting with certified experts in your area who possess knowledge of your unique situation. The hosts of the podcast, along with any participants or affiliated groups, do not take responsibility for any actions taken or not taken based on the information presented in this episode. It is highly recommended that individuals seek guidance from their own personal advisors in fields such as accounting, law, or other pertinent areas prior to undertaking any actions or making decisions that may impact their financial, legal, or other aspects of life.